The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of JFK International Airport's Terminal 7, casting long shadows across the polished floors. Donald Trump Jr. adjusted his Navy suit and checked his Rolex, 6:45 a.m., plenty of time before his 8:30 flight to Palm Beach. He'd made this trip hundreds of times, always flying first class, always smooth sailing. "Good morning, Mr. Peters," Don Jr. nodded to the familiar security guard who'd worked the premium check-in area for years. "How's that grandson of yours doing in Little League?" "Breaking records, Mr. Trump, just like his grandpa used to." Peters beamed, checking Don Jr.'s ID with practiced efficiency. "Heading down to Mar-a-Lago again?" "Business never sleeps, my friend. Speaking of which, I better get moving. Those quarterly reports won't review themselves." The regular morning crowd of business travelers and wealthy snowbirds was starting to file in, many recognizing Don Jr. with subtle nods or disapproving glances, the usual mixed reaction he'd grown accustomed to. He made his way to the United Airlines first-class counter, where a new face sat behind the desk, a woman in her mid-30s with a freshly pressed uniform and a nameplate that read, Patricia Henderson. "Good morning," Don Jr. greeted, sliding his ID and Platinum Frequent Flyer card across the counter, checking in for the 8:30 to Palm Beach. Patricia's fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced efficiency, but then paused. Her brow furrowed slightly as she clicked through several screens. "Is there a problem?" Don Jr. asked, noticing her hesitation. "One moment, sir. Let me just verify something with our system." Patricia picked up her phone and dialed an internal number, speaking in hushed tones. A businessman behind Don Jr. cleared his throat impatiently. "Some of us have flights to catch," he muttered just loud enough to be heard. Don Jr. turned slightly. "Trust me, sir, I'm just as eager to get through this line as you are." More passengers began queuing up behind him, the exclusive first-class line growing unusually long for this early hour. Patricia was still on the phone, her expression becoming increasingly concerned. "Mr. Trump," she finally said, hanging up the phone, "I'm showing some irregularities with your booking." "Irregularities? I booked this flight weeks ago. I have the confirmation right here." He pulled up the email on his phone and showed it to her. "Yes, I can see that, sir, but—" She glanced nervously at her supervisor's office. "It appears your seat assignment has been reallocated." Don Jr. blinked. "Reallocated? What exactly does that mean?" "The first-class cabin has been overbooked, and due to a system update, your seat was reassigned." "Reassigned?" Don Jr.'s voice rose slightly. "I'm a Platinum member. I've flown this route countless times. How exactly does a confirmed first-class seat get reassigned?" A few passengers behind him started whispering, and he noticed several phones being raised to record the interaction. "Sir, we can accommodate you in Economy Plus," Patricia offered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Economy Plus?" Don Jr. let out a short, incredulous laugh. "You're telling me that my confirmed first-class seat just vanished, and your solution is to put me in Economy Plus?" An older woman in the line spoke up. "Oh, boo-hoo. The rich boy has to sit with the common folk for once." Don Jr. turned to face the growing crowd. "This isn't about sitting in economy. This is about a contract being honored. When you pay for a service, you expect to receive that service." More phones were out now, recording every word. Patricia looked increasingly uncomfortable. "Perhaps I could speak with your supervisor?" Don Jr. suggested, trying to keep his voice level. "He's currently in a meeting," Patricia responded too quickly. "A meeting? At 6:45 in the morning?" A younger man in the line chimed in. "Hey man, some of us have places to be. Either take the economy seat or step aside." Don Jr. felt his face growing hot. He pulled out his own phone and opened Twitter, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. "No, not yet. Handle this professionally first." "Patricia," he said, leaning closer to the counter and lowering his voice. "I've been flying United for years. I have never had an issue like this. Level with me. What's really going on here?" Patricia glanced at her computer screen again. "Sir, I can only tell you what the system is showing me. Your original seat 2A is no longer available. We can offer you 23C in Economy Plus, or we can try to get you on the next flight to Palm Beach, which departs at 11:45. End quote. The line behind him was getting restless. More comments floated through the air. Typical entitled behavior. Just take the seat in the back like everyone else. Some people think they're too good to sit with regular folks. Don Jr. took a deep breath. Patricia, I'd like to speak with someone from corporate, now. Sir, I can provide you with a customer service number. No, not a number. I want to speak with someone in authority, right now. A tall man in a pilot's uniform approached the counter. Is there a problem here? Captain Reynolds, Patricia said, relief evident in her voice. We have a situation with Mr. Trump's booking. The pilot looked between Don Jr. and the growing line. Perhaps we could discuss this in a more private setting? With all due respect, Captain, Don Jr. replied, his voice now shaking with barely controlled anger. I've been nothing but patient. I have a confirmed first-class reservation that has mysteriously vanished, and no one will give me a straight answer about why. More passengers were gathering around, drawn by the commotion. The number of phones recording the scene had multiplied. Mr. Trump, the pilot said calmly, I understand your frustration. However, no, you clearly don't understand. Don Jr. cut him off. This isn't about a seat. This is about selective treatment. This is about discrimination. The word discrimination sent a ripple through the crowd. Patricia's fingers froze over her keyboard. That's a very serious accusation, sir, Captain Reynolds said carefully. Don Jr. pulled out his phone again, this time beginning to type. Oh, I think the public will be very interested in how United Airlines suddenly can't honor a confirmed first-class booking for someone with my last name. Sir, Patricia interjected, I assure you this has nothing to do with your name. Really? Don Jr. raised an eyebrow. So it's just a coincidence that my confirmed seat disappeared? That your supervisor is conveniently in a meeting? That suddenly the only option is to sit in the back of the plane? The terminal had grown unusually quiet, the normal morning bustle replaced by the tension of the unfolding drama. Even the passengers who had been complaining about the delay were now fully engaged in the spectacle. A young woman in a business suit stepped out of the line. I'll switch seats with him. I'm in first class, 3B. I apologize, ma'am, Patricia replied, but we can't allow seat swapping at this time due to security protocols. Security protocols? Don Jr. laughed bitterly. Now that's a new one. When did United Airlines start preventing voluntary seat changes for security protocols? Captain Reynolds placed his hand on the counter. Mr. Trump, I understand this is frustrating, but we have a flight to prepare for. What would you like to do? We can accommodate you in Economy Plus, or we can rebook you on a later flight. Don Jr. looked around at the crowd, at the phones recording his every move, at Patricia's nervous face, at the pilot's carefully neutral expression. He pulled out his phone one final time. This is because of who I am, isn't it? He said, his voice now trembling with genuine emotion. Just say it. Have the courage to admit it. Patricia stared at her computer screen, refusing to make eye contact. The pilot maintained his professional demeanor but said nothing. The crowd watched in tense silence, waiting for what would happen next. Don Jr.'s fingers moved across his phone screen, typing out the tweet that would soon ignite a social media firestorm. But he had no idea that in less than an hour, everything would change dramatically with his father's unexpected arrival. The tension in the terminal continued to build as Don Jr. stood his ground at the counter. His tweet had already gone out. Being denied my paid first-class seat on at United. Funny how this happens to people with certain last names. Real professional, political discrimination. A group of businessmen in suits had gathered nearby, some shaking their heads in disapproval, others clearly sympathetic to his situation. Listen, Don Jr. addressed Patricia again, his voice slightly hoarse from the confrontation. I want you to explain to me, step by step, exactly how this happened. I've got time. Patricia shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Sir, as I mentioned. No, Don Jr. cut her off, placing both hands on the counter. Not what you mentioned. The truth. Walk me through it. An elderly couple pushed through the crowd, the woman clutching her phone. We just saw what's happening on Twitter. This is outrageous. She called out. We're canceling our United cards right now. Captain Reynolds stepped closer. Ma'am, please, this is a private matter. Private? Don Jr. turned to face the growing crowd. There's nothing private about discrimination. Nothing private about targeting someone because of their name or their beliefs. A young man in the crowd shouted, Hey, that's not fair. Maybe it's just a computer glitch. A computer glitch? Don Jr. spun around. That only affects one passenger? That only affects me? What are the odds? Patricia's supervisor finally emerged from his office, a tall man with graying hair and a pinched expression. Mr. Trump, I'm Thomas Webb, Customer Service Manager. Perhaps we could discuss this in my office? Oh, now you're available? Don Jr. laughed without humor. No, Mr. Webb, we can discuss it right here, in front of everyone. Explain to me why my confirmed first-class seat suddenly disappeared. Webb adjusted his tie. Sir, these situations can be complex. Complex? Don Jr.'s voice rose. What's complex about honoring a confirmed reservation? What's complex about treating all customers equally? The crowd had grown larger, with airport security officers hovering at the edges, unsure whether to intervene. More passengers were arriving for other flights, stopping to watch the scene unfold. A woman in a United Airlines uniform rushed up to Webb, whispering something in his ear. His face paled slightly. Mr. Trump, Webb said, his tone suddenly more conciliatory. I understand your frustration. Let me see what I can do. Now you want to help? Don Jr. shook his head. A little late for that, isn't it? The whole country is about to see how United Airlines treats people they don't agree with politically. His phone was buzzing constantly now, messages, calls, notifications pouring in as his tweets spread like wildfire across social media. The hashtag Trump Airline drama was already trending. An older businessman stepped forward. I've been flying United for 30 years. Never seen anything like this. Shameful. Webb tried again. Sir, if you'll just give us a moment. A moment? Don Jr. checked his watch. I've been standing here for 20 minutes. My flight leaves in less than an hour. How many moments do you need? Patricia was still typing frantically at her computer, her face flushed. Captain Reynolds had stepped away to make a phone call, speaking in hushed but urgent tones. A group of passengers from another flight had their phones out, live streaming the entire scene. Don Jr. could hear them narrating. We're live at JFK, where Donald Trump Jr. is being denied his first-class seat. United Airlines facing accusations of political discrimination. The situation was spiraling beyond the airline's control, but nobody in the terminal knew that the real drama was yet to begin. Donald Trump himself was about to make an entrance that would change everything, but for now, his son stood alone at the counter, a symbol of either entitlement or discrimination, depending on who you asked. Mr. Webb, Don Jr. said, his voice now deadly calm. I want you to look me in the eye and tell me this isn't about politics. Tell me this isn't about my last name. Webb opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, a commotion near the terminal entrance caught everyone's attention. Security personnel were rushing toward the doors, their radios crackling with urgent communications. But Don Jr. wasn't finished. He turned back to the counter, unaware that his father was about to make an unexpected appearance that would turn this airline dispute into a national media sensation. I'm not moving from this spot, he declared, until someone gives me a straight answer. The American people deserve to know what's really happening here. The crowd murmured in agreement or disagreement, divided along invisible political lines as the morning sun continued to stream through the terminal windows. The stage was set for what would become one of the most talked about airline incidents of the year, but the biggest surprise was still minutes away. The video hit social media like a bomb, filmed from multiple angles by dozens of passengers. The footage of Don Jr. being denied his first-class seat spread across the internet at lightning speed. The initial clip, shaky and recorded from just 3 rows back in line, captured his incredulous expression as he was told his seat had been reallocated. "This is going to blow up," muttered Sarah Chen, a 23-year-old social media manager who'd been standing in line during the incident. She quickly edited her footage, adding captions. "Watch. Donald Trump Jr. denied first-class seat at JFK, Trump Airline drama." Within minutes, her post had thousands of retweets. "Can you believe this?" Sarah's colleague Marcus peered over her shoulder at the engagement numbers climbing. "Your video's going viral." "Look at the comments." Sarah pointed to her phone. "People are losing their minds." The comments section was a battlefield. At Patriot Mama 1776. "Boycott United. This is what the radical left does to conservatives." At Airline Pro. "Former airline worker here. This is not normal procedure, something fishy going on." At Travel Blogger Jane. "Oh please, overbooking happens all the time. He's not special." At Conservative Daily. "Wake up America. They're coming for all of us." In the United Airlines corporate offices, alarms were already going off. Rebecca Martinez, head of social media response, burst into the crisis management room. "We've got a situation," she announced to the bleary-eyed morning team. Donald Trump Jr.'s tweet about being denied his first-class seat is exploding. Multiple videos from different angles, news networks are picking it up. Mark Davidson, the PR director, grabbed his tablet. "Show me the numbers." His initial tweet has 50,000 retweets in 15 minutes. The hashtag Trump Airline drama is trending nationally. Fox News is already running it as their top story. Mark ran his hands through his hair. "Get me a draft statement. Something about technical issues. Keep it vague." "Too late for vague." Rebecca shook her head, turning up the volume on the office TV. On screen, Tucker Carlson's replacement was already diving in. Breaking news this morning as Donald Trump Jr. faces what appears to be blatant discrimination at JFK International Airport. The question every American should be asking: is this politically motivated targeting? Back at the terminal, Don Jr.'s phone was buzzing nonstop. His social media team was sending him updates. "Boss, this is huge. Every major network picking it up. Your tweet has over 100K retweets. Conservatives calling for United Airlines boycott." Don Jr. pulled out his phone again, his fingers flying across the screen. Amazing how United Airlines suddenly can't honor a confirmed first-class booking. Wonder if this happens to everyone or just people with certain last names? Political discrimination. The new tweet poured more fuel on the fire. In the first-class lounge, wealthy passengers were glued to their phones, watching the drama unfold in real time. "This is better than Netflix," chuckled a hedge fund manager to his colleague. "Look at United's stock price." The stock had indeed started to slip as trading opened, investors nervous about the potential fallout. Outside the terminal, news vans were already arriving. Local reporters smelled blood in the water. This is Lisa Chen for News 4 New York, live at JFK, where Donald Trump Jr. has accused United Airlines of political discrimination. Tom Roberts, Fox News, reporting live from what's becoming a major controversy at JFK International. Inside, the videos kept coming. Passengers were live streaming, posting updates, adding their own commentary. Standing right behind Don Jr. at United counter, "They're totally discriminating." Witness: "Lol, watching Trump Jr. throw a tantrum because he has to fly coach like the rest of us." United Airlines, showing their true colors. Boycott United. The airline's social media team was drowning in mentions and messages. At United, "We are aware of the situation at JFK and are looking into the matter. We take all customer concerns seriously." The responses were immediate and brutal. "Looking into it? We can all see what you're doing." "Too late for damage control." "Canceled my United credit card. Never flying with you again." In United's executive offices in Chicago, CEO Jennifer Andrews was already on an emergency call with her leadership team. "How did this happen?" she demanded. "Someone give me answers." The VP of Customer Experience cleared his throat. "Preliminary reports suggest a system glitch during the overnight update." "A system glitch that only affected Donald Trump Jr.?" Jennifer's voice was sharp. "Do you know how that sounds?" "Ma'am," her assistant interrupted, "Donald Trump is tweeting about it now." The former president's message appeared on screens across America. "United Airlines showing terrible discrimination against my son Don. American businesses treating conservatives like second-class citizens. Time for change, boycott United." The crisis was spiraling. United stock had dropped 3 points in the first hour of trading. In the terminal, news crews were trying to get past security. Passengers were choosing sides, some defending United, others expressing outrage. The scene was becoming a microcosm of America's political divide. Conservative influencers were having a field day. Proof of anti-conservative discrimination. The left can't handle successful conservative businessmen. Time to hit United where it hurts, their bottom line. Liberal commentators fired back. Rich guy mad he has to sit with regular people. Trump family and their endless victim complex. United Airlines, thank you for your service. Don Jr.'s phone rang. It was his father's assistant. "Sir, your father saw what's happening. He's making changes to his travel plans." "What do you mean?" Don Jr. asked, not yet realizing that his father was about to turn this airline incident into a national spectacle. The assistant's voice was cryptic. "Let's just say help is on the way." Meanwhile, the videos kept circulating, each with its own spin. Conservative outlets, watch. Shocking discrimination against Trump Jr. Liberal media, entitled Trump Jr. demands special treatment. Travel blogs, United Airlines faces biggest PR crisis since passenger dragging incident. In the United Airlines Operations Center, the situation was reaching critical mass. "Sir," a junior analyst called out to his supervisor, "you need to see these numbers. We're looking at potentially millions in cancellations. The conservative boycott is gaining traction." The supervisor stared at the screens, watching the damage spread across social media like wildfire. "Get legal on the phone, now." But before United could formulate a response, before they could get their story straight, before they could even begin to contain the damage, something was about to happen that would turn this viral moment into an unprecedented crisis. Donald Trump was en route to JFK, and he wasn't coming to make peace. In the terminal, Don Jr. was still unaware of his father's imminent arrival. He continued engaging with the media circus forming around him. "This isn't just about me," he told a reporter who'd managed to get close enough for a comment. "This is about every conservative who's been targeted for their beliefs. Every American who's been discriminated against for their political views." The reporter pressed further. "But isn't it possible this is just a routine overbooking situation?" Don Jr. laughed bitterly. "Routine? Ask yourself why. Out of all the passengers on this flight, I'm the only one whose confirmed first-class seat mysteriously vanished. Ask yourself why the supervisor wasn't available until this became a media story. Ask yourself why they can't give me a straight answer about what happened." On social media, the incident had taken on a life of its own. Memes were spreading. Don Jr. finds out he has to fly Coach Curb Your Enthusiasm theme plays. United Airlines, making the Trump family fly coach since 2024. Plot twist: Hillary Clinton booked all the first-class seats. But not everyone was laughing. Conservative groups were organizing. Cancel United. List of alternative airlines that respect conservatives. Time to hit their stock price. Sell UAL. Call United's corporate office. Numbers below. Make your voice heard. The airline's customer service lines were overwhelmed. Their website was struggling under the traffic. The story was spiraling beyond anyone's control. In the terminal, a group of passengers had formed opposing camps. One side was filming supportively. offering words of encouragement to Don Jr. The other side was less sympathetic, making comments about privilege and entitlement. "Stand your ground, Don," shouted a man in a MAGA hat. "Show them we won't be pushed around." "Oh, please," a woman in business attire rolled her eyes. "Some people have real problems." The tension was building. Security officers were positioning themselves strategically around the area. Nobody knew that in just minutes, this already volatile situation was about to reach a whole new level. Don Jr.'s phone buzzed again, another message from his father's team. But before he could read it, a commotion near the terminal entrance caught everyone's attention. The stage was set for what would become one of the most talked about moments in recent political history. Donald Trump was about to make an entrance that would change everything. The social media storm was reaching fever pitch when something unusual caught Don Jr.'s attention. His phone lit up with a cryptic text from his sister Ivanka. "Dad saw the news. He's furious. Brace yourself." Before he could respond, United Airlines discrimination had become the #1 trending topic worldwide. Celebrity conservatives were jumping into the fray. "Just canceled my United credit card. This is disgraceful," tweeted a famous country music star. "Remember when airlines begged for bailouts? This is how they treat Americans," posted a prominent conservative actor. Inside United's Crisis Management Center, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. "Ma'am," a junior analyst called out to Rebecca Martinez, "Fox News is running a ticker showing our stock drop. We're down 5% and falling." Rebecca massaged her temples. "What about the system audit? Did we figure out what happened to his booking?" "That's the thing." The analyst lowered his voice. "The system shows his seat was manually reassigned at 3 a.m. this morning. Someone accessed the booking directly." "Jesus Christ," Rebecca muttered. "Get me IT security, now." Meanwhile, at the terminal, the crowd had swelled. Passengers from other flights were stopping to watch the spectacle, many filming on their phones. A group of veterans in the crowd stepped forward. "Mr. Trump," one of them called out, "my unit and I are behind you. This is unacceptable." Local news crews had managed to get through security and were setting up their equipment. A reporter from NY1 thrust a microphone toward Don Jr. "Sir, there are accusations that you're making this political, when it could be a simple booking error. Your response?" Don Jr. turned to face the camera, his expression stern. "A booking error that targeted only me, that happened at 3 a.m., to a platinum member who's flown this route hundreds of times? The American people aren't stupid." The United supervisor, Webb, was now sweating profusely. His phone hadn't stopped ringing for the past 30 minutes. "Mr. Trump," he tried again, "perhaps if we could discuss this privately." "Oh, now you want privacy?" Don Jr. shot back. "After your airline's discrimination has been exposed to the world?" Suddenly, all phones in the terminal started buzzing simultaneously. Emergency news alert. Breaking. Former President Trump changes travel plans, heading to JFK amid airline controversy involving Sun. The terminal erupted in chaos. Some passengers cheered, others groaned. Security personnel started speaking urgently into their radios. "Don," a familiar voice called out. It was Alan Weisselberg Jr., Don's longtime associate, pushing through the crowd. "Your father's 5 minutes out. He was supposed to fly private to Palm Beach, but diverted here when he saw what was happening." Don Jr.'s eyes widened. He hadn't expected this. The whole situation was about to change dramatically. On social media, the news of Trump's imminent arrival sent shockwaves. Trump coming to confront United. This is about to get real. Live footage of United executives right now. The airline's social media team tried desperately to regain control. "At United, we are committed to treating all passengers with respect and dignity. We are investigating the circumstances." The responses were merciless. "Too late. The boss is coming." United about to learn about the art of the deal. "Get your popcorn ready." In United's executive offices, panic was setting in. "Get our legal team to JFK now. CEO Jennifer Andrews barked into her phone, and someone find out who reassigned that seat. But it was too late. Security cameras showed a motorcade approaching the terminal. Secret Service agents were already clearing the area. The former President of the United States was about to make an entrance that would turn this viral moment into legend. Don Jr. stood his ground at the counter, knowing that everything was about to change. He could hear the commotion growing near the terminal entrance, could see the Secret Service agents appearing from every direction. The world was watching, phones were recording, and his father was moments away from turning this airline dispute into a national sensation. The terminal fell into an eerie silence as the first Secret Service agents entered, their earpieces glinting under the fluorescent lights. Passengers pressed against the walls, phones raised high to capture what was about to unfold. "Stand back, please. Clear the area," commanded a stern-faced agent, his sunglasses reflecting the morning sun streaming through the windows. Whispers rippled through the crowd. "Is that really him? Oh my God, he's actually coming. This is about to get wild." The United Airlines supervisor, Webb, tugged nervously at his collar. "Perhaps we should move this discussion to—" "Too late for that?" Don Jr. interrupted, a slight smile playing at his lips. He could hear the commotion growing near the entrance. A young mother holding a toddler gasped, "Look, Tommy, that's the president. Well, the former president." And there he was. Donald Trump strode through the terminal entrance like he owned it, his signature blue suit and red tie immaculate, his expression thunderous. The Secret Service detail created a protective bubble around him, but couldn't contain his commanding presence. "Where's the person in charge of this disaster?" Trump's voice boomed across the terminal. "Where's the genius who thinks they can treat paying customers like garbage?" Webb looked like he wanted to dissolve into the floor. Patricia, the counter agent, suddenly became very interested in her computer screen. "Dad," Don Jr. called out, "over here." Trump made his way through the parting crowd, passengers scrambling to capture the moment on their phones. He stopped in front of the United counter, surveying the scene like a general assessing a battlefield. "So," he began, his voice dripping with sarcasm, "this is how United Airlines treats its premium customers? This is how you run a business?" Webb stepped forward, attempting to maintain his professional composure. "Mr. President, I'm Thomas Webb, Customer Service Manager." "Oh, now you're available?" Trump cut him off. "Now that I'm here, suddenly there's a manager? Convenient. Very convenient." A passenger in the crowd shouted, "Tell him, Mr. President." Trump turned to address the growing audience. "You see what's happening here, folks? You see how they treat people they don't agree with? Terrible. Just terrible." Don Jr. filled his father in. "They claim my confirmed first-class seat was reallocated at 3 a.m. No explanation, no proper alternative offered." Trump's face reddened. 3 in the morning? Who's working on passenger manifests at 3 in the morning? I'll tell you who, people with an agenda. A very nasty agenda. Webb attempted to regain control of the situation. "Sir, I assure you this is simply a technical." "Technical?" Trump laughed. "Let me tell you about technical. I've run airlines. I know airlines. This isn't technical, this is targeted harassment." The crowd had grown even larger, with airport staff and passengers from other terminals streaming in to witness the spectacle. Some were cheering Trump's every word, while others watched with barely concealed disdain. "Get your CEO on the phone," Trump demanded. "Right now. Not tomorrow. Not in an hour. Now." Webb fumbled with his phone. "Sir, I don't have direct access to." "Then get someone who does." Trump's voice echoed through the terminal. "Because let me tell you something, this story isn't going away. Every news network in the country is going to be talking about how United Airlines discriminates against passengers based on their politics." A United Airlines executive who had been monitoring the situation from Chicago joined the fray via Webb's phone on speaker. "Mr. President, this is Michael Richardson, Executive Vice President of Customer Experience. We sincerely apologize for any inconvenience." "Inconvenience?" Trump scoffed. "You call political discrimination an inconvenience? Your stock is dropping faster than CNN's ratings, and you want to talk about inconvenience? The terminal erupted in a mixture of cheers and groans. Richardson's voice crackled through the phone. "Sir, we're conducting a full investigation into the seat reassignment." "Investigation?" Trump leaned closer to the phone. "Let me make this simple for you. You have exactly 5 minutes to fix this situation, or I'm going to tell my 80 million social media followers to never fly United again. Ever." Don Jr. watched as his father commanded the scene. Just like old times, the United staff huddled together, speaking in urgent whispers. Phones were ringing off the hook at the counter. A young woman in the crowd called out, "This is all just theater! Pure theater!" Trump spun around. "Theater? Your airline stock dropping 5 points in an hour? Is that theater? Discrimination against paying customers? Is that theater?" Security guards were struggling to maintain order as more people pressed into the terminal. News crews had somehow gotten through, their cameras rolling. "Mr. President," a reporter shouted, "is this a planned protest against corporate discrimination?" Trump turned to the cameras, his media instincts kicking in. "Planned? Ask United Airlines if they plan to harass my son. Ask them why they're targeting conservatives. The American people deserve answers." Webb's phone rang again. He listened intently, his face growing pale. "Yes, ma'am. Yes, I understand. Right away, ma'am." Trump noticed the change in Webb's demeanor. "Oh, now we're getting somewhere. Was that your CEO? Finally decided to wake up?" The terminal had become a pressure cooker of tension. Trump supporters were calling for boycotts, while other passengers complained about their delayed flights. The situation was balancing on a knife's edge. "Dad," Don Jr. whispered, "look at their stock price." He held up his phone, showing the United Airlines stock in freefall. Trump smiled grimly. "Sometimes you have to hit them in the wallet to get their attention. Watch what happens next." Webb cleared his throat. "Mr. President, Mr. Trump, if I could have your attention, please. Our CEO has authorized me to—" "To what?" Trump interrupted. "To offer another insincere apology? To make more excuses?" "No, sir," Webb replied, sweat beading on his forehead. "To inform you that we've identified an available first-class seat for your son." The crowd erupted in a mixture of cheers and boos. "Oh, you found a seat?" Trump's voice dripped with sarcasm. "Just like that? A miracle. Ladies and gentlemen, United Airlines just performed a miracle." Don Jr. raised an eyebrow. "And how exactly did this seat become available?" Webb shifted uncomfortably. "We made arrangements with other passengers." Trump wasn't finished. "So there were seats available all along? You just needed the right motivation to find them? Interesting. Very interesting." The regional director of United Airlines, having just arrived at the terminal breathing heavily from running, approached the counter. "Mr. President, Mr. Trump, please accept our deepest apologies for this unfortunate situation." Trump turned to face him. "Apologize? You want to apologize now? After this becomes national news? After your stock tanks? After you're exposed for discriminating against passengers?" The director tried to maintain his composure. "Sir, we value all our customers." "Save it." Trump cut him off. "The whole world has seen how you really treat customers. How you really operate. Sad. Very sad." The regional director dabbed his forehead with a handkerchief. "Mr. President, we're prepared to offer you and your son complimentary upgrades to our premium suites on this flight, along with lifetime platinum status." "Lifetime status?" Trump laughed. "You think this is about airline status? This is about principle. This is about right and wrong. This is about discrimination in America." The crowd had grown even larger, with airport staff having to form a human chain to maintain order. Some passengers were missing their own flights just to witness the showdown. "Look around." Trump gestured to the terminal. "Every person here is seeing exactly how corporate America treats conservatives, how they treat anyone who doesn't follow their agenda." A businessman in the crowd shouted, "I'm canceling my United corporate account right now." "You hear that?" Trump pointed toward the voice. "That's the sound of consequences, real consequences." Don Jr. showed his father another update on his phone. The hashtag United Airlines discrimination had reached over 2 million tweets. The regional director was now on his own phone, speaking in hushed but urgent tones. "Yes, ma'am. Yes, he's still here. The whole terminal is watching." "Yes, I understand the stock situation." Trump turned to the news cameras that had gathered. "You know, I've seen a lot of corporate discrimination in my time, but this is something else. United Airlines should be ashamed. Very ashamed." "Mr. President," the regional director interjected, "we have your son's new seat assignment. First class, 2A, his original seat." "Oh, really?" Trump's eyebrows shot up. "And how did that happen? Did the seat just magically reappear?" Webb, still at his computer, looked increasingly uncomfortable. "Sir, we discovered there was a system error." "A system error?" Trump repeated incredulously. "A system error that only affected my son? That only targeted one passenger? Do I look like I was born yesterday?" The crowd reacted with a mixture of cheers and applause. "Dad," Don Jr. touched his father's arm, "look at this." He showed him another phone update. Major conservative organizations were calling for a nationwide boycott of United Airlines. Trump nodded with satisfaction. Sometimes, folks, you have to stand up to bullies, even when those bullies are big corporations who think they can push people around. The regional director made one final attempt. "Mr. President, if we could just move past this unfortunate incident." "Move past it?" Trump turned to face him directly. "Oh, we're going to move past it all right. My son is going to take his rightful seat, the one he paid for, the one you tried to steal from him. But this story? This story isn't going away. The American people are watching. They're always watching." Security was now having to manage the swelling crowd as more passengers and airport staff gathered to witness the confrontation. "And one more thing," Trump added, his voice carrying across the terminal. "Every person who flies United needs to know this could happen to them. Today it's my son. Tomorrow it could be any conservative, any Republican, anyone who doesn't fit their preferred profile." The impact of his words was visible on the faces of United staff. They knew this incident would have lasting repercussions for the airline. The atmosphere in Terminal 7 shifted dramatically as word spread that United Airlines was suddenly resolving the situation. The regional director, still sweating under the harsh terminal lights, approached the Trump party with renewed deference. "Mr. President, Mr. Trump," he began, his voice carefully modulated, "we've made all necessary arrangements, if you'll both follow me." Donald Trump wasn't finished. "Oh, now we're getting the red carpet treatment? Funny how that works, isn't it, Don?" A small crowd of passengers trailed behind them as they walked toward the gate, phones still recording every moment. "Ladies and gentlemen," Trump announced, turning to address the onlookers, "watch how quickly problems get solved when you stand up to corporate bullies. Watch how fast impossible becomes possible." At the gate, 2 first-class passengers were being quietly ushered aside by airline staff. A young woman in United Airlines uniform whispered to her colleague, "They're giving them each a $5,000 travel voucher and upgrading their next 5 flights to first class." Don Jr. raised an eyebrow. "So there were solutions all along?" The gate agent, a different one from earlier, practically bowed as she handed over the new boarding passes. "Mr. Trump, Mr. President, we've restored your original seat assignments. We deeply apologize for any inconvenience." "Inconvenience?" Trump scoffed. "Is that what we're calling discrimination now?" A businessman in line spoke up. "This is going to cost them way more than a few travel vouchers. My entire company's switching to Delta after this." The regional director was still trying to salvage the situation. "Sir, we want to assure you that United Airlines values all our customers, regardless of their political—" "Save it," Trump interrupted. "The whole world saw what happened here today. They saw exactly how United Airlines treats people they don't agree with." Don Jr. checked his phone. "Dad, look at this. United stock is down 7%, their biggest drop since COVID." Trump nodded with satisfaction. Sometimes the market speaks louder than words, very loud. very clear. As they prepared to board, more passengers approached to show their support. "Mr. President, you showed them," called out an elderly man in a veteran's cap. "Don't let them push conservatives around," shouted another passenger. But not everyone was sympathetic. A young woman in business attire rolled her eyes. All this drama just because someone had to fly coach? Trump turned to face her. "No, young lady. All this drama because a major American corporation thought they could discriminate against customers based on their politics. Big difference. Huge difference." The boarding process began, with the Trumps being given priority entrance. As they walked down the jet bridge, the regional director made one final attempt at damage control. "Mr. President, if there's anything else we can do." "Oh, there's nothing you can do now," Trump replied. "But I'll tell you what's going to happen. This story isn't going away. Tomorrow, next week, next month, people will remember how United Airlines treats conservatives." On board the aircraft, the first-class cabin fell silent as they entered. The flight attendants, clearly briefed about the situation, were almost comically attentive. "Mr. Trump, Mr. President, can I get you anything? Water? Coffee? Champagne?" Don Jr. settled into his original seat, 2A. Amazing how the same seat that was unavailable an hour ago is suddenly free. Trump took his seat across the aisle. "You know what this reminds me of, Don? Remember when we dealt with the Plaza Hotel situation? Same thing. They think nobody will stand up to them." The pilot emerged from the cockpit, looking nervous. "Mr. President, Mr. Trump, on behalf of the entire flight crew, we want to express our deepest—" "Save your apologies," Trump waved him off. "Just fly the plane. And maybe tell your corporate bosses that discrimination isn't a good business model." As other passengers boarded, many stopped to voice their support or take quick photos. The flight attendants struggled to keep the aisle clear. Don Jr. pulled out his phone one last time before takeoff. Interesting how problems get solved when you stand up to corporate bullies. Original seat miraculously found after at United stock dropped 7%. Funny how that works. Corporate discrimination. The tweet went viral before they even took off. In United's corporate offices, the damage control was just beginning. The CEO was on emergency calls with major shareholders. The PR team was drafting statements. Legal was reviewing policies. But the story had already taken on a life of its own. Conservative media was having a field day. Trump stands up to airline discrimination. United Airlines exposed. Anti-conservative bias revealed. Corporate America's war on conservatives continues. As the plane prepared for takeoff, Trump turned to his son. "You know what's going to happen now, Don? Every conservative in America is going to think twice before flying United. Actions have consequences. Big consequences." The flight attendant approached with champagne. "Compliments of United Airlines, gentlemen." Don Jr. couldn't help but laugh. Now they're sending champagne. Bit late for that, isn't it? Trump took the glass. "You know what we're drinking to, Don? We're drinking to showing corporate America that they can't push conservatives around. Not anymore." As the plane taxied toward the runway, passengers in coach were still filming, still tweeting, still spreading the story. What had started as a simple seat assignment had become a symbol of something much larger. In the days that would follow, United Airlines would face congressional inquiries, shareholder lawsuits, and a massive conservative boycott. Their stock would take weeks to recover, and their reputation even longer. The incident would be cited in political speeches, used in campaign ads, and referenced in debates about corporate bias. It would become a rallying cry for conservatives who felt targeted by big businesses. As the plane lifted off from JFK, Don Jr. looked out the window at the Manhattan skyline. His phone was still buzzing with notifications, messages, and media requests. This wasn't just about a first-class seat anymore. It had become something much bigger. Trump raised his champagne glass to standing up for what's right and to teaching corporate America a very expensive lesson. The flight attendant approached again, practically bowing. "Mr. President, Mr. Trump, is there anything else you need?" Trump smiled. "No, thank you. I think United Airlines has learned everything they need to learn today." As the plane climbed into the clouds, the story was still spreading, still growing, still igniting debates across the country. What had started as a simple airline dispute had become a national conversation about corporate bias, political discrimination, and the power of standing up to big business. Don Jr. took one final look at his phone before turning it off. The latest headlines told the story. Trump family takes on United Airlines and wins. United stock plummets after Trump discrimination incident. Conservative groups call for nationwide United boycott. The lesson was clear. In the age of social media and instant news, no corporation was too big to face consequences for their actions. The Trumps had turned a potential humiliation into a powerful statement about corporate accountability and conservative rights. As the plane headed south toward Palm Beach, the story was far from over. But one thing was certain: United Airlines would think twice before reallocating any one seat again, especially if that person happened to have the last name Trump. The end result wasn't just about getting their original seats back. It was about sending a message that would resonate far beyond this single flight, far beyond this single airline. It was about standing up to corporate America and winning, a story that would be told and retold in conservative circles for years to come. As the plane reached cruising altitude, the ripple effects of the morning's events were still spreading across the country. The United Airlines PR team was in full crisis mode, drafting their official statement. This morning's incident involving Mr. Trump Jr.'s seat assignment was the result of an automated system error. We deeply regret any inconvenience and are conducting a thorough investigation. But the damage was already done. United discrimination had been trending for hours, and conservative groups were organizing boycotts across all social media platforms. In the first-class cabin, Don Jr. and his father were being treated like royalty. Every flight attendant seemed desperate to make amends. "More champagne, Mr. Trump?" asked Sandra, the lead flight attendant, her hands slightly shaking as she poured. Trump watched her with amusement. "You know, Don, I've seen this before. Suddenly everyone's so helpful, so apologetic. But where was all this service this morning?" A passenger from business class accidentally wandered into first class, phone in hand. "Mr. President, thank you for standing up to them. My whole family's canceling their United credit cards." The flight attendants gently but firmly escorted him back to his seat. In Chicago, United's CEO was facing an emergency board meeting. The stock had stabilized but remained down 6.8%, hundreds of millions in market value wiped out in a single morning. "Get me our top corporate clients on the phone," she demanded. "We need to stop this bleeding before the market closes." Back on the plane, Don Jr.'s phone buzzed with a message from Eric. "Bro, you're all over Fox News. Tucker wants you on tomorrow night." Trump smiled at his son. "Sometimes you have to take a stand, Don. Sometimes you have to show them they can't push us around." As they began their descent into Palm Beach, the story was still unfolding. But one thing was clear: what started as a simple seat assignment had become much more. It had become a symbol of resistance against corporate America's perceived bias, a rallying cry for conservatives who felt increasingly marginalized. The incident would be remembered not just as a victory for the Trumps, but as a costly lesson for corporate America about the power of standing up for one's principles, even if those principles started with a first-class airline seat.